In this video I will show you how to replace the upper suspension control arms on 1999 to 2007 Chevy Silverado and GMC Sierra 2500 pickup trucks. Step number 1. Park the truck on a flat surface, activate the parking brake and place blocks in front of and behind the rear wheels for safety. 2. Raise the front of the truck using a hydraulic floor jack and place jack stands under the chassis for safety. 3. Loosen the nuts holding the wheel cover using a ratchet or an impact tool and a 22 mm socket. Once the nuts are loose, proceed to remove the wheel cover. 4. Remove the wheel lug nuts using an impact tool and a 22 mm socket. Once the lug nuts have been removed, proceed to remove the wheel. 5. Release the ABS sensor cable and the clamps holding it by prying it upwards using a small pry bar as shown in the image. 6. Disconnect the ABS sensor cable by pressing inwards on the connector lock and pulling outwards at the same time to disconnect it completely. 7. Remove the bolt shown on the screen using a ratchet and a 10 mm socket. 8. Remove the bolt that fastens the brake hose bracket to the steering knuckle using a ratchet and a 10 mm socket. 9. Remove the cotter pin from the upper ball joint nut using needle nose pliers. 10. Loosen, but do not remove completely the upper ball joint nut using an 18 mm wrench. 11. Place a hydraulic floor jack under the lower suspension control arm and raise the jack to apply pressure against the control arm. This will make it easier to remove the upper control arm. 12. Separate the upper ball joint from the steering knuckle using a fork similar to the one shown on the screen by driving it in between the control arm and the steering knuckle by hitting it with a hammer, or using a ball joint separator tool. 13. Remove the ball joint nut in its entirety and press down with the other hand on the upper control arm for greater ease. If necessary, use a pry bar and pry it downwards. 14. Observe the location of the camber alignment plate, draw some marks as a reference so that when installing the new control arm the wheel alignment is as close to its original position as possible. 15. Remove the nuts from the bolts holding the upper control arm using a ratchet, a 21 mm socket, and a 21 mm wrench respectively. 16. Once the nuts are removed, tap outward on the center of each bolt with a punch and a hammer as shown in the image to remove them. 17. Once the bolts are removed, pull the upper control arm outward with your hands to remove it completely, and, if necessary, use a pry bar for greater ease. 18. Clean the mounting area thoroughly with a wire brush and proceed to install the new upper control arm in its original position. 19. Install and apply a small layer of anti-seize paste on the threads of the bolts that hold the upper control arm and on the surface where the camber alignment plate sits shown in the image. 20. Place the upper control arm at the height of its original position, align the reference marks you made earlier and tighten the nuts firmly according to the specifications described in the owner's manual. 21. Clean the contact surface between the ball joint and the steering knuckle with a wire brush and insert the upper ball joint bolt into the steering knuckle in its original position. If necessary, pry it down with a bar for ease. 22. Install and tighten the nut on the upper ball joint according to the specifications listed in the owner's manual and install a new cotter pin in its original position. 23. Install the grease fitting on the upper ball joint using a 7 mm wrench and tighten it firmly. Once installed, apply grease to the ball joint using a grease gun. 24. Remove the hydraulic floor jack from under the lower control arm and proceed to install the remaining components in the reverse order in which they were removed, making sure that all the bolts are tightened according to the specifications described in the owner's manual. Proceed to replace the other upper control arm in the same way you replaced the first one. Once both upper control arms have been replaced, install the wheels and tighten the lug nuts partially. 25. Lower the truck to the ground and finish tightening the wheel lug nuts firmly according to the specifications listed in the owner's manual. 26. Install the wheel cover and tighten the lug nuts firmly without damaging them and remove the rear wheel locks. It is highly recommended to have a professional alignment shop perform a wheel alignment to ensure that the tires will not wear unevenly and the truck will not pull to one side while driving. And that's how easy it is to replace the upper suspension control arms on 1999 to 2007 Chevy Silverado and GMC Sierra 2500 pickup trucks.